Hello everyone, welcome to English for You. I am Mike.
And I'm Reese.
And we are wearing our school uniforms. We go to a very relaxed school.
Very casual
I like your uniform. It's very relaxed.
Right, just white and blue shorts and kind of trainers.
Right.
We can wear whatever we want at this school.
These are not school uniforms. We are not students, but when you were a student, did you have to wear a school uniform?
Absolutely.
You did,
And if you didn't wear a school uniform, you would be sent home from school and your parents would be punished.
It would be big trouble. There would be no excuse to be out of your uniform. I remember at my school, we also had a uniform. Someone took their tie off as they were walking to the bus stop. A teacher drove by. That guy was in trouble the next day.
Didn't get hit by the car.
No, he didn't get hit by the car. He got hit by a punishment from the teacher the next day. So it was a serious thing. So I don't really have much of an experience without wearing a school uniform until, of course, university. Right? Once you get to college, university, only the most unusual colleges or universities will have a school uniform. But in elementary, junior high school, senior high school, these are common.
It's pretty ubiquitous in the UK and Canada. I think maybe in America, there are some schools that don't have uniforms.
Yeah, or they have a half uniform. And I think it's becoming a bit more popular than it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. So today and tomorrow, we're going to be looking at this idea of school uniforms from two sides, the pros and the cons, or in other words, the good things, pros, about wearing a school uniform, and maybe the not so good or even the bad things, the cons of wearing a school uniform. And then we'll be able to make a good decision whether we think it's a good idea or not. So let's get to it. School uniforms, the pros and cons.
Reading. School uniforms, the pros and cons. We asked several students, parents, and teachers to give their opinions about whether or not school uniforms are needed. The pros of school uniforms.
David, I prefer wearing a uniform at school. I think it keeps all of the students on a level playing field. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, or whether you have a sense of fashion. The uniform represents equality this way. It takes the stress out of choosing what to wear too. It's simple for me to get ready for school each day.
Ms. Song. Since our school switched to wearing uniforms, I've been impressed with the changes here. There are fewer students in trouble, and they seem to listen better to us teachers. The students also get more respect from adults when they dress in uniform. We don't have to worry about their clothes being appropriate or not.
Karina, I don't mind wearing a uniform at all. It's one less thing to be bothered with at school. I really want to concentrate on my learning in class and not think about how my clothes look. I can keep my mind on my studies and not be concerned about having attractive clothing.
All right, so our article begins by kind of setting up this idea of a discussion or a debate about the pros and the cons of the school uniform. So it begins, we asked several students, parents, and teachers to give their opinions about whether or not school uniforms are needed. Now, already that's interesting. I would have guessed they're only talking to the students because they're the ones who have to wear the school uniforms. But they also wanted to talk to the teachers and the parents of the students about whether or not they like school uniforms. When we use this word whether, it's kind of like using the word if. We're often going to have a choice here, some options, two things that could happen. I haven't decided whether I will go to the beach or go hiking this weekend. In the same way, you could say, I can't decide if I will go to the beach or go hiking. So, we're kind of laying out this idea that there are some choices coming along. And in this article, our choices are between whether school uniforms are good or not. So let's look at the good. All right, the pros, that's what we're beginning with today. The pros, i.e. the good side or the benefits of the whole school uniform.
All right, well, let's see what is so good about wearing a school uniform.
All right.
We're introduced to David, who says, I prefer wearing a uniform at school.
Oh, okay. So David obviously is a student since he's wearing the uniform.
I don't think teachers generally wear school uniforms, although they do need to dress nice.
It would be weird also if David was a father who was wearing his children's school uniform because he really likes the school, maybe.
That's a weird dad.
Don't wear your kid's school uniform, Dad. That's a weird thing. So David is definitely a student.
David's a student, and he wears a school uniform. And he continues, I think it keeps all of the students on a level playing field. Oh. That's an interesting phrase, which we'll talk about in a moment. But first, let's talk about the word to prefer something. To prefer is a verb, and it means to like one thing more than other things. To choose that one thing more often than the other things because you think that that thing is better for whatever reason. So I could ask Mike a question. Do you prefer noodles or rice?
Today I would prefer noodles because I had rice last night.
Good answer.
Yeah, all right.
You could also say, I would prefer to stay home tonight. That's something I would like to do more than other things, like going out. Here's an example sentence. I would prefer to sit by the window on the airplane.
Okay.
True story.
If you could choose, that's what you would choose, right? But of course, with prefer, we're not saying I must do this, I have to do this. But you know, if you give me a choice, this is the one I would like more, I would prefer. All right, so back to this whole level playing field. He doesn't mean they're playing soccer or baseball on a field that's level and it's not sort of tilted or bending to one side. When we talk about people being on a level playing field, we're not actually talking about sports. We're saying basically everyone has an equal chance or an equal status. They're all at the same level, right? You don't have the rich kids in the fancy clothes and the poor kids in the not so nice clothes and, oh, that makes things a little difficult or embarrassing. No, everyone's the same. Everyone's on a level playing field. As he explains, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or whether you have a sense of fashion. Very true. Yeah, some kids, of course, can afford the coolest, nicest, newest clothes. Other kids just dress funny. They don't really worry about that. And it might not be important to you, but it might be something they get teased about and made fun of at school. But if everyone has a uniform, everyone is the same. As he says, the uniform represents equality this way, everyone being equal.
The word uniform actually has another meaning, which means the same.
It's true,
right?
Yeah. A uniform look is everyone looking the same. That's a very good point. Now here, also we used if as we used whether earlier in the article. Yeah, we're using those to show that there are choices here. There are two sides to something that you might want to consider. And we also had this word to represent. It represents equality among the students. When something represents something, it's basically a sign or a symbol of something. We're taking something big, maybe an idea of some kind, and then we're turning it into often a picture or a color or a little sign or something like that. And if you know what you're looking at, you know that this thing means that thing, that bigger thing, that bigger idea, something that it might take you many words to explain, you can represent using a sign of some kind. Flags are probably the most common thing we would think of. Flags represent different countries. When you see the flag, you think of the country. And here's an example that involves flags. It says the 50 stars on the US flag represent the 50 states.
So to understand something that's being represented, you need to know the context of what you're talking about.
Exactly.
If you showed that flag to an alien, they would just see 50 stars.
Red, white, blue, some stars, some bars.
They wouldn't know that those stars represent the states. You have to understand the situation to know that's true.
Exactly. In the same way that letters represent words. And if you know how to read, you can read those letters and understand the words. But if you don't know how to read, it's just lines on a page.
Well, getting back to the article, it says, it takes the stress out of choosing what to wear, too. It's simple for me to get ready for school each day.
True.
This is a very good point.
It is a good point. Yep.
Not only are everybody in the same boat or the same playing field because they don't have to compete with expensive clothes, but also you don't have to waste time choosing clothes that you think people will say are cool or fashionable.
Right, absolutely. You don't even have to pick your clothes. You don't even have to decide which pants to wear because you probably only have one pair of pants in one color, so it makes it very simple to get ready for school. You save a lot of time.
The article also used the word stress, which is a noun, and stress is emotional strain or pressure or anxiety. Stress is a feeling of pressure or other negative feelings that come on because of your situation. Maybe you have a lot going on at school, so much homework and exams to study for, or maybe there's something that you're really worried about in your life. Those things can make you feel stress, and it's a very unpleasant feeling. Stress can make you feel bad mentally in your brain and physically. If you have too much stress in your life, it could make you really sick. Here's an example sentence with stress. Rachel was feeling a lot of stress before giving her speech in front of the class.
Of course, yeah, because, getting dressed in the morning, if you don't have cool clothes, if you don't worry about that kind of thing, it might be okay for you. But being teased at school would give people stress, would make people feel anxious and worried. And that's why these uniforms help to promote equality. Everyone's kind of the same. The students look the same. It's easy to identify what schools they go to. And in the schools, all of the students can be treated the same by the teachers and their classmates. That's equality. No one having an advantage, everyone being on the same level.
We like equality.
We do, yeah.
The article also used an interesting structure. It used a question word without asking a question. What's that about? Well, sometimes we use noun clauses introduced by question words, also known as indirect questions. And the structure usually follows subject, verb, and then the question word. So where, what, who, why, how.
Okay.
So we can ask questions in this way as well. You could say, do you know who that is? It's using the same structure, but to actually ask a question. But we can also use this structure to make statements. For example, I don't know what to do.
Oh, okay. So you're not really looking for an answer.
No.
You're just sort of asking a question to the gods.
Yeah, the world, the universe.
I don't know where I'm going. If you're just trying to find yourself walking around your house, you don't expect someone to say, you're going to the bathroom. No, you're just sort of saying, I don't know what's going on here. All right, back to our article. So here's Ms. Song. Now, I'm guessing from the name that she's possibly a teacher. And as we get into her opinion, it looks like that's the case. She says, since our school switched to wearing uniforms, I've been impressed with the changes here. Interesting. So this is a school that we're assuming Ms. Song works at, and they switched to wearing uniforms. That is, of course, the students in the school switched. Now, when we use this word switch, it tells us something about the history of that school, because to switch is to change generally from one thing to the other thing. We're not changing from one thing to anything possibly. There's probably a limited number of things. Often when you go to a restaurant, if you're ordering food and they say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that available, there'll be one or two other things you can switch to. If they don't have the salad, you can switch to eating the soup or something like that. So when she said that her school switched to wearing uniforms, I guess a few years ago, the school had no uniforms. The students would wear anything they wanted. But then one year they changed from no uniforms to, yes, having uniforms. So now it is a school where the students do. They switched from one way to the other back in the past. Here's an example sentence. Can I switch seats with you? I don't want to sit next to the window.
Oh, well, great. As the last example explained, I love sitting next to the window.
You prefer sitting next to, that's perfect then. So we'll just switch. And I guess for Ms. Song, the teacher, this switch from having no uniforms to now wearing uniforms was a good thing that kind of affected her in a way. She used this word impressed. She was impressed with how this switch, how it changed the students maybe made them more polite or behave better or something like that. But when you're impressed by something, it affects you in an emotional way. It affects your feelings. It makes you go, wow, it might be kind of surprising, almost something you didn't expect. And then it happens and you see it, you experience it, and it kind of sticks with you. It's not just like, hey, that's cool. No, it's like, oh my gosh, that was really interesting. And you might even think about it the next day or something like that. It might change the way you think about things into the future if you're really impressed. For example, I was really impressed with the service at this new hotel. It only opened last week. I thought they'd be making some mistakes and still learning things, but no, everything was perfect. So yeah, I was really impressed. All right, so she was impressed with how the students changed after this switch. What kind of impressed her? What did she notice was different?
Well, she's going to explain the reasons why this was a good thing.
Okay.
Miss Song says there are fewer students in trouble, and they seem to listen better to us teachers.
So the students are just more well-behaved.
Who would have thought that you could have such positive changes just from wearing different clothes?
Putting on a tie and a nice pair of gray pants or something like that will really change those students. And then she also adds,
the students also get more respect from adults when they dress in uniform.
Interesting.
So the teachers and maybe the parents as well kind of respect the students more or treat them in a better way.
Right.
Because they're dressed formally.
Exactly. Maybe when they go to the local stores, the local shop owners aren't like, hey, you kids, get out of here. Stop making noise, because the kids are more well-behaved. The adults are like, wow, you kids are really well-behaved. Such good young students. So that's nice.
Well, Miss Song continues. She says, we don't have to worry about their clothes being appropriate or not. Appropriate or not. I think I know what she's referring to. It could be about wearing clothes that maybe show too much skin, which would not be a good thing in the school.
Right.
Or t-shirts that have vulgar language on them.
Okay, I know some parents don't like it when kids wear their pants low down, like those hip-hop guys, or, you know, just some of those styles that young people like that maybe parents are like, no, I don't like that. Well, they don't have to worry about, there's no more arguing between the students and the teachers about how they look. So I guess that's a good thing. Yeah,
they can choose, that they can't choose their own clothes, which sounds like a negative thing, but in terms of a school uniform, apparently, according to David and Miss Song, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about uniforms, which are a kind of clothing. We might have used the word clothes and clothing in this article a few times. Let's discuss how these words are different, because they're kind of describing the same thing. Clothes are things that you wear on your body. So is clothing. So what's the difference? Well, clothes is a countable noun, but this word is very interesting because it only exists in its plural form. There is no singular clothe.
Oh, that's true.
Unless you're using it as a verb.
True, you could use it as a verb, to clothe, but you don't say, I have to take many clothes on my long holiday.
Yeah, this word only exists in its plural form, clothes.
Right.
Whereas the word clothing is uncountable. So you can say, I have some clothes, I put clothes on, or I wear winter clothes. But if we're using the word clothing, we would need to maybe have some kind of measure word there. A piece of clothing, or I bought 2 items of clothing. We also saw the word appropriate, which we've discussed a little bit already. Appropriate means right or correct for the situation. So if we're talking about appropriate clothes for winter, we're talking about coats and scarves and boots, not shorts and vests.
No, that wouldn't be appropriate. It wouldn't fit the situation. Now, that situation could be different in many different ways, but as long as what you're wearing looks right for what you're doing or where you are, then we would say it's appropriate, or we could also say it's suitable.
Suitable or appropriate. Yeah. We can use the word appropriate to describe many different situations. It doesn't have to be about clothing.
No.
You could say, please use appropriate language in the classroom. Now, we're not talking about English or Chinese or Spanish. We're talking about using good or bad words.
Yes.
So appropriate language for the classroom would be, language that doesn't include bad swear words.
No, maybe being a bit more polite with the way you use language, using polite terms when you talk to people, for example. All right, back to our article. Now it's Karina. Now, I guess Karina is a parent because we've already talked to a student and a teacher, and the article mentioned that we would also be hearing from a parent. So let's hear what Karina has to say. She says, I don't mind wearing a uniform at all. No, she's a student.
She's a student.
She's definitely a student. I don't mind wearing a uniform at all. It's one less thing to be bothered with at school. Okay? So in the same way, you know, I don't have to worry about what to wear. It's not a fashion show at school. I can get up and get dressed quickly in the morning because I know what I'm going to wear. And then she says, in another good benefit of this idea, I really want to concentrate on my learning in class and not think about how my clothes look. I'm sure many parents have said it. School is for learning. It's not a fashion show. So it really doesn't matter what you're wearing as long as you're paying attention, studying, working hard, and getting your work done. You don't have to worry about your clothes. It doesn't matter at all. And when we say something is not at all, that means it really isn't. Like, as much as you can imagine it is not that much and a bit more. Because yes, for Karina and for many students, especially the ones who get good marks, concentrating on their work is what they want to do. When you concentrate on something, you focus on it, you use all the powers of your mind to really pay attention to what you are doing. You don't want things to bother you. You don't want to be sitting there daydreaming or thinking about what to have for lunch later. No, you really want to focus on what you are doing. And yes, students should be concentrating on their schoolwork, not on their clothes. And Karina has one more thing to say about this.
Karina continues, I can keep my mind on my studies and not be concerned about having attractive clothing.
She can concentrate.
Yeah, she can keep her mind on something, which is basically another way of saying to concentrate on one thing or to focus on something, probably because that thing is important. It means to not let yourself get distracted or think about other things. If you keep thinking about one thing, your focus is on that. We also saw the word attractive, which is an adjective, and something attractive is something that is pleasant in some way. It could be the way that it looks or smells or tastes or seems. Something can look attractive. That means it looks nice, pretty, or handsome. Something can sound or seem attractive too, like a good idea or a vacation to Spain. We often use attractive to talk about people that we think are handsome or beautiful. But really, we can describe almost anything good as being attractive. Here's an example sentence. Melanie has an attractive singing voice.
Oh, so she's a good singer and people like listening to her sing.
Yeah.
Her voice sounds nice.
Things that are attractive they usually attract people.
They do. They will draw them in and they might turn Melanie into a big star because, of course, if she has an attractive voice, people might even pay to hear her sing because it's such a lovely sound.
Lovely.
Let it go, let it go.
Just like Mike.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of day one's article. We've learned about all the good things about wearing a school uniform. Tomorrow we'll hear about the bad things. But for now, let's go to our For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
All right, so our chat question is about, look at that, it's about uniforms. How amazing. But we're not actually going to be asking questions about school uniforms because if you think that, once I get out of high school, I won't have to wear this uniform ever again. Well, maybe not that uniform, but maybe another uniform. Because our question is, what other kinds of places or jobs ask people to wear uniforms and why, not just schools?
Well, there are many
really,
careers and jobs. Police officers, doctors, nurses, people who are in the military.
Soldiers,
They have to wear very particular uniforms and for different reasons,
Absolutely.
right? Doctors wear uniforms because they keep themselves clean.
They do.
Police officers and firefighters wear uniforms because it keeps them safe.
Yeah, they have special equipment on their uniforms.
Yeah, it's
of course,
also...
If you need to find one, it's good to have. There's a police officer, I can tell by the uniform.
The people in the army, the soldiers, their uniform keeps them hidden in the trees.
It can. Sometimes those uniforms do, absolutely. And of course, pilots and flight attendants on airplanes, they wear them so we know who to listen to in emergencies and things like that.
Even a person who works in a restaurant or in a bar might wear some kind of uniform, usually to identify with their place of work.
True, yes, that's right. And of course, mail carriers have to wear uniforms because if you saw a strange guy with a big bag just wearing normal clothes, playing with your front door, you might think, hey, what are you doing? Oh, he's in a green uniform. It's the mail carrier, so at least I won't call the police on him.
You guys can think about this question too. What other people wear uniforms, particularly think about different kinds of jobs, and why do they wear them?
The Avengers.
The Avengers, of course.
Talk about
Superheroes. Well, we're going to go talk about the Avengers. We'll see you tomorrow for day 2.
Vocabulary Review.
Prefer. Sheila prefers spending time outside to staying inside and playing video games all day. Represent. This rose represents my love for you. Please accept it as a gift from me. Stress. If you feel a lot of stress around exam time, try doing something fun between your study periods. Switch. Edward used to wear glasses, but he switched to contact lenses last year. He looks very different now. Impressed. I was really impressed when I saw how fast Eliza ran in the 100-meter race. Attractive. This is such an attractive apartment. I really like the designs of the living room and bedroom.
智慧小补帖
Equality. Appropriate. Concentrate.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net